With the Star Wars cinematic universe looming over the horizon as more Mandalorian-esque Disney Plus shows come barreling our way, it's never been a better time to be a Star Wars fan. The lineup is impressive, there's hype, there's anticipation, and there's endless possibilities, including better female representation. You would think that this franchise, this huge studio company in the entertainment industry with such household names like Princess Leia, would be a commanding force in pushing for timeless leading ladies. And they have? So that's why I decided to make these videos. Obviously, I am so down for more well-written female characters, but my biggest wish for this new era of Star Wars, maybe it's wishful thinking, I don't know, but I'm mostly hopeful that they will actually think to develop and give more screen time to some that have already been created and introduced, but yet have been left to die. Some metaphorically, and many, very literally. So get ready for me to remind you of every single Star Wars woman to have graced our screens, as well as their potential for future greatness. So, it shouldn't come to anyone's surprise that this video will be littered with scrumptious spoilers, so consider this your general spoiler warning. It needs to be known beforehand that I am not just listing names, I am deconstructing characters across multiple Star Wars installments, so it's quite literally inevitable that there be spoilers during this video. Apologies for any inconvenience caused. As you can see from the title of this video, this is part one of, I hope, a 3-part video series where I will essentially just be gushing and rambling over popular and obscure Star Wars female characters spread across the 3 main Star Wars movie eras: original trilogy, prequels, and sequels, which will also include the likes of The Clone Wars, Rebels, Rogue One, Solo, Jedi Fallen Order, and The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. Unfortunately, these lists will exclude characters from comics, books, and other video game canon, apart from Jedi Fallen Order, as I am unfortunately not very well versed in Legends, so alternate Star Wars canon characters such as Darth Talon, Dr. Aphra, Bastila Shan, Drio Eclipse, and of course Mara Jade will unfortunately not be included. To clarify, these videos are not top 10 tier or ranking lists. I just really wanted to shine a spotlight on these characters and give all the Star Wars women their 5 seconds of fame, because there are strangely both not enough and way more female characters in Star Wars than you may think, and today I decided to rake my brain and come away with many characters I'm sure some of you have totally forgot about, yet who are actually pretty fantastic and deserve a lot of love. Now with that all out of the way, let us begin with the ladies of the original trilogy, starting with Leia. And ending with Leia. It's a bit harsh, but Breha Organa is definitely the most prominent female Star Wars character of all time. I would go so far as to say that she has arguably set the bar for other female characters in the Star Wars franchise. My personal favourite aspect of Leia's character, other than her lore and story of course, is Carrie Fisher's ability to play a snarky damsel in distress role with more depth and likability than the archetype usually allows. Because I can assure you, if it hadn't been Carrie Fisher playing Princess Leia back in the late 1970s, this character would not have reached the popularity she did, nor would she still feel real and relevant today. She humanized the trope and somehow made Princess Leia a badass and independent character. I still think she was underutilized and sidelined in the films, but no matter what happened to her on screen, she still had dignity, strength, and poise that continues to make her a fan favorite. That being said, considering she's been in the franchise since day one, and we've seen her a bit in other installments since, I've noticed that we have a strange obsession with New Hope Leia. Sure, it's iconic. It's the space buns, it's the white dress, I get it, but I'm genuinely sick of it. What I really want to see now is post Return of the Jedi Leia, where she gets to be the boss queen that fixes the bloody universe post-Empire. Of the main trio, Leia is the one with the most goddamn influence and potential, yet she's the one who we see the least of. We have the underappreciated Solo film with Han, and while I'll still argue we have yet to see enough Jedi Master Luke in his prime, he is the main character of the original trilogy, and we got that badass Skywalker hallway moment in The Mandalorian Season 2. Whereas Leia really hasn't been given anything substantial since. As I've alluded to just before, I love Carrie Fisher and she'll always be Princess Leia in our hearts, but it's because she breathed life into such an iconic character that we would be disrespecting her legacy by not recasting Leia. Friends, we cannot keep putting Leia safely on a shelf or in a box to gather dust somewhere because we're too scared to damage her. I'm too desperate for more Leia content to allow that. We have actors like Sebastian Stan who are completely capable of mirroring a young Mark Hamill, so don't tell me we cannot find a talented Carrie lookalike. All this to say, there is not nearly enough Leia, and I'm hoping that changes real quick. But I'm curious to know what other fans think out there. Like, do you think Disney should try and perfect the CGI character technology, or should they continue in their attempts to recast the iconic characters? Let me know down in the comments below so we can get chatting. In the meantime, let's move on to Mon Mothma. Mon has always seemed like a very stone-faced and no-nonsense, but also strong and capable leader. Yet, even in the prequels and the Clone Wars, where her character should have had more to do, she's always been passive. She deserved to be on the same level of badass politician as Breha Organa. Personally, I believe it would have made so much more sense for a take on Admiral... Her name was Alan? Yeah, her. It would have made so much more sense to have Mon take on Admiral Holdo's role instead of, well, Admiral Holdo. If you have a character you need to sacrifice for the plot, why spend time cheaply setting them up as apparently amazing, accomplished and important, through exposition and dialogue no less, in a half-baked attempt for their very obvious future death to resonate with the audience, when you could have put Mon Mothma there instead? Mon, who is one, recognisable, and two, has previously proven her impressiveness since she has not only survived the Empire as a Republic senator, but also fought for and survived the rebellion when her closest friends and colleagues like Padme Amidala and Breha Organa did not. In hindsight, this Ice Queen had the potential to jerk a couple heartstrings, if only the creators had used her unsung legacy to their advantage. To be fair, for this to have actually worked in terms of continuity, not that that's ever really been much of a concern in the past, but in terms of continuity, if she were to replace Holdo, she would have been really fucking old. But I mean, George Lucas did canonically make her as ageless as Will Smith. I mean, look at this. 19 years later and girl hasn't aged one bit. You know what? Mon is officially so much cooler now that we've established she's an immortal redhead. I stan. Oola. Wow, you know, I take back what I said about the lack of variety in original trilogy female characters because I just went from Republic Senator to exotic dancer in a single list point. So, Oola was pretty popular, even with her untimely and honestly horrendous death, and I get it. But if we're talking Twi'leks, I personally prefer a few other characters of a species over her. But you know what? I would not be surprised if Oola was actually the reason why Twi'leks got as popular as they did, so heck, if it wasn't for Oola, maybe we wouldn't have gotten Ayla and Hera. Oola definitely left her mark and has stayed in the minds of audiences ever since, even if she's only remembered as the sexy green alien that got eaten. Speaking of Oola though, it would be remiss of me to not talk about the other ladies of Jabba the Hutt, since this video is to remind people of which characters actually existed. And it's only while researching for this video that I learned that they actually had names! Grietta, Lin-Mi, Restall, who is my personal favourite due to her solid design, Diva, Yana, and Snootles. Okay, you know what? Let me talk about Snootles real quick. So yes, I know she was a point of contention with the fans because she was one of the many practical effects to fall victim to Lucas's overzealous CG technology as superior campaign, but I actually want to talk about her because of her little moment in the Clone Wars. TCW is known for having fleshed out some of the more obscure characters, like the other Jedi of the time, but I'm pretty sure no one would have predicted Snootles to get further characterization. Snootles, believe it or not, is the femme fatale of her own episode and is even given her own Hutt Slayer moment. Not because she was enslaved and taken against her will, but because hath no fury like a woman scorned, especially when the death of a mob boss ex-boyfriend could amass her a small fortune. Set up as being one of those annoying side characters, we the audience make the fatal mistake of underestimating her, which is why I'm sure we were all utterly blindsided when she manages to kill one of the series' reoccurring antagonists, Zero the Hutt, the aforementioned mob boss ex-boyfriend, when no other attempt by other much more powerful and capable characters could. A surprise to be sure, but in my case, it was actually a welcome one. To finish the OG trilogy list of women, because yes, we have already come to the end of this list, we have Luke's Aunt Beru in her famous blue milk, which I think we can all agree is the Star Wars equivalent of Harry Potter's butterbeer. That's all I have for Aunt Beru, guys. Honestly, Beru is even less memorable in episode 2 as Owen's very lost-looking shadow. Mother figures pre-prequels were not considered to be very important or noteworthy. Actually, even after the prequels came out, we still had some pretty lackluster space moms, with a few noteworthy exceptions, which I will be getting to, calm down. But while we're on the topic, I might cheat a little bit and mention Breha Organa's blink and you'll miss her moment in episode 3, so yes, during the prequels. Because while Beru was Luke's mother figure growing up, Breha was Leia's. And when you realise she gets blown up with the rest of planet episode 4 alongside her husband, Leia's adopted father Bail, by Leia's real father Darth Vader in front of Leia, it's not only mildly horrifying, but also shows you that OG moms were cursed to have the worst Star Wars deaths ever. For a complete list of all the prominent background / extras in space fashion alien suits, check out this list by Thrilists, because yes, that is all I've got for the original trilogy. I know, you probably think there were more women, but that's actually thanks to the prequels of all things, but more on that in part 2. Next, I'm going to quickly talk about Rogue One, because once again, very limited choices here. Senator Pamlo. She was one of those loud and grumpy senators in that one scene we get with the other rebels before Jyn Erso and friends rebel against the rebels. Yep, loved her outfit though, but I cannot talk about the senators without mentioning our newly appreciated and respected Mon Mothma for her steady and calm presence as the leader of the rebels. What a queen. Lyra Erso. Jyn's mum, who could have totally escaped with a daughter, but then realised a life without Mads Mikkelsen is not a life worth living at all, and stands her ground in front of the big bad in the film. She also defected from the Empire, so, you know, respect is given where respect is due. And, yeah, that's about it for prominent Rogue One female side characters. I'm not kidding. There might be a few background extras. So yeah, these two are the only original female characters I remember ever seeing in Rogue One. Well, I guess that brings us to Jyn. Jyn Erso. So, the tragedy of Rogue One is that they actually set up this phenomenal cast of potentially interesting characters, but due to the limited runtime of the 2-hour-ish film, we either get nothing substantial, just about enough to care, or rush through a lot of information and background because we gotta hurry up and get to the end where they all die. In my opinion, this story should have been made now. This should have been a Disney Plus show instead of a film. That way we can flesh out these characters, give them at least one episode each to shine, and get them heartstrings knotted real tight so we can feel even more gutted by its finale. But let's talk about our main lead. Jyn is a fascinating character because of her intriguing personal connections. Her dad was the mad lad that created the faulty Death Star, and her godfather is everyone's favourite terrorist, Saw Gerrera. That's just too tantalising to ignore. Those first 2 minutes make up what is arguably one of the best character introductions we've seen in this entire franchise, no doubt about it. It had me gripped from the get-go, and then I don't know what it was, but at times I would look at Jyn, and all I got was white noise. I don't even know how to explain it. Hello there, this is editing chatter because I have attempted to discuss Jyn's character 3 times. My problem is that she is somehow a contradiction of herself, right? Because on the one hand, she is a passive entity in what has been marketed and directed as being her story, her movie, when all she really is a human MacGuffin. Like I said before, she is super interesting because she's the one with Saw's message and her dad is the one with the Death Star plans, but then on the other hand, it's so obvious that she is so much more complex and human than what we see on the surface. I think what was really jarring for me was that we open the film when she is the beginning of her emotional journey. This is such an emotional time, but she's yet to reach her most vulnerable state. Her most vulnerable state will be during the first few days on her own, or even when Saw abandons her later on, so when she's young and utterly alone. But we never see that. Instead, it cuts to years later, and instead of being able to connect and sympathize with her, the next time we see her, she's hardened, disillusioned, and guarded. As the audience, we get emotional whiplash because we see the beginning of her being at her most vulnerable, but then the payoff gets skipped, and we find her again later at the beginning of her last emotional arc instead. We do not get to witness all the good stuff. While I'm ecstatic that they're giving Cassian a Disney Plus show, I would have loved to see a pretty intense, emotional series of young Jyn. It would probably get pretty dark considering she would have to deal with so much so young, but that's the good stuff right there. That's Jyn's story. Not this. This is the flamboyant finale, right? This is the heartbreaking finale. This is the tragedy of Jyn's story. But it's not the story. That's the conclusion of the story. We never even get to see the story. Anyway, hopefully that helps her case. I don't know. The best take I've seen on Jyn is actually a recent Instagram post done by this artist where the caption reads, "Jyn Erso is a special case, a heroine with no powers, no social standing, and basically no hope. Her story was meant to be fleeting, designed to be tragic. In a universe, most don't even remember her name. She is just stardust in the cosmos." Next up, we have Rebels. Love it or hate it, this show definitely had better female representation than the other installments mentioned during this video. But I've only watched the series once, so I apologise in advance if I miss a few side characters. When I think Star Wars, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who would love for 2 things to become more prominent within the franchise. More alien protagonists, and more Mandalorians. Before the Baby Yoda picture show appeared, Rebels was the first installment to not only address and provide for one, but both in the form of the 2 main women of the series, Hera Syndulla and Sabine Wren. Hera. Remember how I was alluding to better Twi'lek characters and better space moms? Yep, Hera delivers on both of these, and I love her all the more for it. I love her as a character, I love her story, and I love the idea of her dynamic with not only Kanan, but the rest of the Ghost crew. Yeah, I said the idea of her dynamic with other characters because I don't think it was that well executed. Let me explain. Hera is an adult in the show, and as much as I adore her, I think the show relied way too heavily on childish filler antics to keep their supposedly younger target audience entertained, to the point where I never once took her, Kanan, and I guess Zeb seriously as adults. Season. By then it was already far too late. And that's my biggest issue with the show in general. I wanted to see Hera deal with more adult issues that had nothing to do with Ezra. Just because the protagonist is an angsty teenager doesn't mean the rest of the characters have to be as well. And look, I didn't need Kanan and Hera to always make out on screen, but the show and Fez, they fucking had sex, you know what? I kind of demanded more explicitly romantic implications early in the show, so I could at least bathe in the glory of them being canon and alive before he got cruelly ripped away from us. But nitpicks aside, Hera is a really solid character and is my absolute favourite in the show. And is the reason why I really want to read A New Dawn, because I love these two so much. I'm still heartbroken they didn't get the happily ever after. Sabine Wren. As a fan favourite, I totally get and respect what she stands for and what she means to the fans, and the fact that she's a Mandalorian just adds that much more of a cool factor to her character. But like Hera, I feel like something is missing, and I actually think Sabine got the even shorter end of the stick. Sabine had so much potential backing her character. I mean, this poor girl got banished because she made a weapon of mass destruction that got turned on her people, which even being Mandalorians, they couldn't handle. But herein lies part of the issue. Mandalorians are dangerous and violent and have an insane history and a very interesting culture that never gets the time of day. Their timeline is also incredibly convoluted, so good luck keeping up with that. But in Rebels, it gets the worst treatment because it's handled with kid gloves, and because of it, the weight of what Sabine went through never registered with me when I first watched the show. I'd be curious to see how I'd feel after a second viewing, but I remember first seeing Sabine and going, "Hello, mysterious and colourful Mandalorian, tell me your secrets." But instead of slowly unraveling these answers, we get Ezra-centric filler episodes until season 3. Guys, it took 3 seasons before we got anything relating to Sabine being a freaking Mandalorian. So of course, by the time this plot point came around and became relevant, I guess, I was completely disconnected, which is super unfortunate. Considering how colourful Sabine is as a character, and not just in character design, it sucks that personally, I just think she blended into the background. That's no fault of her character. I blame the script and pacing of the show for that oversight. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, give us more Sabine and Hera and make them center stage protagonists of their own non-Ezra affiliated stories, please and thank you. Seventh Sister. Oh my goodness! The seventh sister. Throughout this video, I've been continuously pointing out the missed opportunities with characters, as that is what this video has apparently become now, but none are as much of a wasted opportunity than the seventh sister. The seventh sister is a female Marillion darkside force user tasked with tracking down Ahsoka Tano. Let me reiterate what I just said in case you didn't see where I'm going with this. The seventh sister is a female Marillion darkside force user tasked with tracking down Ahsoka Tano. Who better placed to be the seventh sister than an already established female Marillion darkside user with ties to Ahsoka Tano, like, oh, I don't know, Barriss frickin' Ophi? I mean, they even give Luminara a moment in Rebels, and she's dead. There's no way that wasn't the original plan. There's just no way, and I don't know why it didn't happen. Can you imagine? She could have been the Triller to Ahsoka Seer. The emotional turmoil, the drama, the depth that could have brought to this unfortunately one-note antagonist. Barriss as an Inquisitor makes so much sense. I can't even compute how this missed opportunity happened. I just can't. Next up, we have a fair few of Empire ladies. I don't know why I introduced them like that, because none of these ladies really provoke that kind of enthusiasm, unfortunately. Governor Price, who I nearly totally forgot about. And Captain Bronson and Maketh Tua, who I actually forgot about. Other than arguably General Moff Tarkin, Agent Kallus, and more recently Moff Gideon, Empire agents in general have been one note useless, and more incriminatingly, harmless. Even General Thrawn, who apparently is badass in the novels, just seemed like an all bark no bite type of character in the show. Hardly a single one of them poses a real threat, which is not a good look when they are the second most antagonistic force in the original series. I wish I had more to say about these women, but either they are treated as joke fodder, not taken very seriously, or are overshadowed by their superior in rank male counterparts. Sorry, ladies. Ketsu Onyo. I actually completely forgot about her until I watched Forces of Destiny. Not gonna lie, I needed to look her up to remember who she was, and my mind got blown. Let me just read her wiki summary for you all real quick. Ketsu Onyo was a human female Mandalorian who worked as a bounty hunter in the employ of Black Sun in the years prior to the Battle of Yavin. She was a friend of Sabine Wren and helped the cadet escape from the Imperial Academy on Mandalore. The two became bounty hunting partners before she and Wren parted on bad terms. Hold the mother fluffin' phone. Black Sun, Imperial Academy on Mandalore, bounty hunters. How did they make her so forgettable? How? She could have brought so much to Sabine's character if she had delivered on this badass summary. I'm actually still so devastated. Rebels, my child, why did they forsake you this way? Numa. I love Numa because Numa has two clone dads that she still holds in high esteem even post Order 66. Because her two clone dads are some of the best clones the Republic I've ever seen. Because us as the audience live vicariously through Numa, she befriended and cherished our disenfranchised and dehumanized clone boys. We wanted to see more characters like Numa, and seeing her grown up and a part of a people's resistance and rebels is completely in line with the history and shows a character growth in a simple but heartwarming way. If only she had had an interaction with Rex for Kanan to see. Because in Rebels, Rex, Wolf and Gregor really could have done with just one more vocal advocate for clone welfare. Imagine having to hide your appreciation for the clones because they suddenly killed all the Jedi. I would have loved to see more from Numa. Just a mini side story episode. Just something. Anything. Mira Bridger. Ezra's outspoken and rebellious mom who is, or at least I thought she was, presumed dead for years, when instead she was merely imprisoned, only to then really be killed later in the same episode they revealed that she was alive. I think that just the fact that their single son is alone out there in this empire-ruled world would be enough for them to try to escape way earlier than they did, but apparently not. No, just me. I don't know, that makes her a pretty lackluster mum in my opinion. Marida Sumar, the chick who loses her rebel husband in that one episode. The only adept motherly figure I actually remember is Ursa Wren, Sabine's mum. This is where I wish previous episodes or installments had educated the audience more on Mandalorian culture, because then I'd be able to not condone, but to at least understand Ursa's reactions and decisions concerning her strange daughter instead of being a cold, heartless, and emotionless bitch. Like, sure, accidental mass slaughter of her own people, but she was a child! That makes her your responsibility! But as it stands, I actually was mildly interested during the episode when Sabine reunites with her family. From vague memory, I don't think they did it especially well, but I definitely got enough out of it to be intrigued. You know what? I want a Sabine spin-off series now. I want a pre-Rebel Sabine story. I want to see all these lost moments of Imperial Academy Sabine with Ketsu, Kid Genius Engineer Sabine creating insane weapons that let her get turned on her own people, Sabine getting banished by her own family, all in high-def emotional quality, so all these moments of Rebels can cut me down to size and essentially rip my heart out, because Sabine deserves the live-action treatment. And guess what? That brings us to the end of the video. Yep, that's it for OG era Star Wars women. This video would have been like 3 minutes long if it wasn't for Rebels. And yes, my inability to shut up. If I forgot someone, definitely let me know in the comments so I can pin it for all to see. Because when I first decided to make these videos, I definitely did not think it would take this much work. So I'm almost certain I forgot a few characters. Part 2 will be up eventually, and we'll detail the prequels and Clone Wars eras, so if that sounds like something you'd be interested in watching, feel free to subscribe to get notified, and in the meantime, I'd love to get chatting in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a good one.